Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. She tested me by saying her friend's husband bought her a car. I told her that her friend's husband could buy her one too after the divorce. The backpedal was immediate and desperate, but I wasn't playing games anymore. I wasn't in a competition. I was in an exit strategy. It started innocent enough 5 weeks ago. My wife reconnected with her college roommate Miranda, who had just moved to Austin with her husband. They met at Mozart's Coffee Roasters on Lake Austin, and when my wife came home that afternoon, something had changed in her eyes. She had this distant look, like she'd seen something that made our life suddenly insufficient. She told me about Miranda's new life in West Lake Hills, the wealthy suburb where executives and tech millionaires live. She mentioned the BMW X5 Miranda drove to their coffee date. Just casual conversation while we unpacked groceries in our modest 3-bedroom house in Brentwood. I didn't think much of it then. Friends catch up, they compare lives, they move on. I figured the novelty would wear off after a few days. I was wrong. By day 3, the BMW came up again. Not casually this time, but deliberately. She told me that Miranda's husband had surprised her with it. Just bought it one Saturday morning and put a bow on it in the driveway. My wife said it with this tone that wasn't quite asking, but wasn't quite telling either. It was testing. I responded that it was a nice gesture and went back to reading the news. Her disappointment was visible, but I didn't understand what I was supposed to do with that information. The first week continued like this. Every evening brought a new detail about Miranda's amazing new life. The house with the renovated kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. The designer handbags. The weekend trip to Napa Valley. Each story was delivered with increasing emphasis, like she was waiting for me to recognize some pattern I was missing. By the weekend, she suggested we go car shopping. Just to look, she said. Our Lexus ES was only 3 years old and ran perfectly fine. I'm a project manager at a tech company, making a comfortable middle-class salary of about $95,000 a year. We had savings, a retirement plan, a mortgage we could afford. I told her we didn't need a new car right now, and that if we did, we'd budget for it properly. She nodded, but the disappointment in her face was deeper this time. Week 2 was when I started to see the pattern clearly. Monday morning, she mentioned how Miranda's husband just knows how to treat his wife right. Tuesday brought comments about their kitchen renovation and how much thought he'd put into making sure Miranda had her dream cooking space. Wednesday, she showed me Miranda's Instagram photos from Napa Valley, scrolling through them slowly to make sure I saw every perfect sunset and expensive dinner. Thursday was the first direct attack. She asked me if I didn't want to provide nice things for her. I told her we had nice things. We had a home, reliable transportation, financial security. She shook her head and said that wasn't what she meant. She meant special things, surprising things, things that showed effort and thoughtfulness. Friday, she went shopping with Miranda at the Domain, the upscale shopping district north of downtown. She came home with bags from stores we never shopped at, purchases I hadn't approved. When I asked about the expense, she got defensive. She said she deserved nice things sometimes, that Miranda's husband never questioned her purchases, that I was being cheap. The weekend brought our first real fight about money. I pulled up our budget and showed her our financial goals. The house we wanted to buy eventually in a better neighborhood. The retirement accounts we were building. The emergency fund we'd been contributing to steadily. She looked at the spreadsheet like it was a prison sentence. She said Miranda never had to worry about budgets, that her husband provided a lifestyle where money wasn't something to stress about. I stayed calm and explained that we had different financial situations. Miranda's husband was a senior executive at a Fortune 500 company. I wasn't, and probably never would be. That was reality, not a character flaw. She went quiet after that, but I could see her mind working. She wasn't accepting my explanation. She was rejecting it. Week 3 was when the systematic comparison truly began. Every evening conversation circled back to what I wasn't providing. Monday, she criticized my career trajectory. She pointed out that Miranda's husband was already a VP and asked what my timeline for advancement was. I told her I was good at my job and moving up at a reasonable pace. She asked if reasonable was good enough. Tuesday, she started showing me real estate listings in West Lake Hills, homes that cost 3 times what we could afford. She talked about how nice it must be to live somewhere with that kind of status. Wednesday, she sent me links to luxury SUVs, saying she was just dreaming. Thursday, she commented during dinner that Miranda never had to worry about money, and that must be nice. By Friday, she'd started talking about sacrifice. She said she'd sacrificed her dreams to be with someone who wouldn't even buy her nice things. I asked what dreams she'd sacrificed. She couldn't name any specific ones, just this vague sense that her life should be more than what it was. More expensive, more impressive, more like Miranda's. Sunday evening of week 3, she sat me down for what she called a serious talk about our financial future. She said she felt like she'd been settling. That word hung in the air between us like poison. Settling. As if our 5 years of marriage had been some compromise she'd made with herself, accepting less than she deserved. She wanted to see more ambition from me, more generosity, more proof that I valued her. I listened to everything she said without interrupting. Then I asked her a simple question. I asked if she thought comparing me to her friend's husband was a productive way to communicate what she needed. She said she wasn't comparing, she was just showing me examples of what good husbands do. I nodded and told her I understood. But what I really understood was that this wasn't about communication. This was systematic disrespect disguised as motivation. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to fight this battle on her terms. I wasn't going to defend my worth or argue about my value as a provider. I was going to document everything and let her show me exactly who she'd become. And when the time was right, I was going to show her the consequences of turning our marriage into a financial competition. Week 4 was brutal. Monday, she created a Pinterest board of her dream items and shared it with me. A Cartier bracelet, a Louis Vuitton bag, a Tag Heuer watch. She called it inspiration for what she wanted from life. Tuesday, she made a direct comparison. She said Miranda's husband had bought her a Cartier bracelet for no reason, just because he loved her. The implication was clear. I didn't buy her expensive jewelry, therefore I didn't love her properly. Wednesday brought criticism of my appearance. She mentioned that Miranda's husband wore Tom Ford suits to work, and maybe investment in appearance paid off in career advancement. I was wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, the standard tech industry uniform. She was suggesting I needed to dress like an executive to become one, ignoring that my job didn't require or reward that kind of presentation. Thursday, she delivered a financial ultimatum. She wanted to know my 5-year plan for increasing our income and lifestyle. She wanted specifics. What was I doing to get promoted? Was I networking appropriately? Was I thinking strategically about my career trajectory? I told her I was doing my job well, and opportunities would come when they came. She called that attitude the reason we'd never have what Miranda had. Friday, she went to happy hour with Miranda and came home late, talking about their amazing dinner at Uchi, the upscale Japanese restaurant downtown. She described every dish in detail, emphasizing the cost and the experience. She said it must be nice to have a husband who didn't worry about the price of dinner. I reminded her that I'd never refused to take her to nice restaurants. She said there was a difference between agreeing to go somewhere and enthusiastically choosing to provide special experiences. Saturday afternoon of week 4, she made the comment that changed everything. We were watching TV when she casually said that Miranda's husband had just bought her that BMW without her even asking. Just surprised her with it one morning. She said that's how you know someone really values you. When they provide things without being prompted. When generosity is automatic, not negotiated. I looked at her carefully and asked what kind of car Miranda drove now. She seemed confused by the question and said the BMW X5, obviously. I asked if she would like me to buy her a car like that. She said she was just pointing out that it would be nice to have a husband who showed he cared through his actions, through meaningful gestures that required sacrifice and thoughtfulness. I nodded slowly and told her she made an interesting point. She smiled, thinking she'd finally gotten through to me. What she didn't realize was that she'd just crossed the line from criticism into complete disrespect. She'd made it clear that our entire marriage could be measured in dollars, and that I was coming up short on the balance sheet. She thought she was training me to be better. She was actually teaching me exactly why she didn't deserve to be married to me at all. The rest of week 4 continued the pattern. Every conversation was a comparison. Every interaction was a test I was apparently failing. She'd found a weapon she thought would force me to change, and she was using it relentlessly. But I had a different plan entirely. While she was busy tearing down everything about who I was as a husband, I was building the foundation for what would happen next. Week 5 was when I set the trap. Monday through Wednesday, I agreed with everything she said. When she mentioned Miranda's husband was taking her to Cabo next month, I told her that sounded wonderful and that she deserved a husband who did things like that. She looked surprised but pleased, thinking she was finally breaking through my resistance. Thursday, I suggested a weekend trip to Fredericksburg, the wine country about an hour west of Austin. I said it would be romantic, a chance for us to reconnect. She was thrilled. She thought this was me finally making an effort, finally stepping up to show her I could provide special experiences. I booked a nice bed and breakfast on Main Street and made a reservation at Vaudeville, one of the upscale farm-to-table restaurants in town. Then I did something she didn't expect. I invited Miranda and her husband to join us for dinner Saturday night. I told my wife it would be nice to get to know them better, to see their relationship up close. Maybe I could learn something from observing how a truly successful marriage worked. She practically glowed with excitement. She thought I was finally ready to humble myself and learn from her example couple. She had no idea I was setting the stage for her complete humiliation in front of the very people she'd been using to destroy our marriage. Friday afternoon, we drove to Fredericksburg. She was in the best mood I'd seen in weeks. She talked about how romantic this was, how proud she was that I was finally making an effort. She mentioned the dinner reservation and how excited she was for me to spend time with Miranda's husband, to see how he treated his wife, to understand what real romance looked like. I drove and listened and said very little. The trap was set. She'd spent 5 weeks comparing me to another man, using his wallet as proof of his worth and my inadequacy. Now it was time for me to make a comparison of my own. But mine wouldn't be about money. Mine would be about respect, gratitude, and the difference between a partner and a scorekeeper. Saturday evening arrived. We met Miranda and her husband at Vaudeville at 7. The restaurant was intimate and upscale, white tablecloths, and an impressive wine list. Other diners were scattered throughout, close enough to overhear conversations, but not crowded. The perfect setting for what was about to happen. My wife and Miranda immediately started discussing Miranda's life. The new handbag, the upcoming Cabo trip, the kitchen renovation that was finally complete. My wife kept glancing at me meaningfully, making sure I was paying attention to every detail. Miranda's husband looked tired. He checked his phone frequently and seemed distracted. I noticed, but my wife didn't. She only saw the expensive watch on his wrist and the designer suit he wore. I ordered an expensive bottle of wine. My wife took this as a good sign, proof that I was finally ready to embrace the kind of spending she'd been advocating for. She smiled at me warmly, the first genuine smile I'd seen in weeks. She thought she'd won. She thought this dinner was my surrender. The appetizers came and went. The main courses were served. My wife was practically vibrating with satisfaction, thinking this evening was the culmination of her successful campaign to improve me as a husband. That's when she made her fatal mistake. She addressed the table with complete confidence. "We're so glad you could join us. I've been telling my husband how much we should aspire to have a marriage like yours." I smiled and agreed. "Absolutely. I've learned so much from hearing about your relationship over the past 5 weeks." Miranda's husband looked uncomfortable. "Oh, well, every marriage is different." My wife interrupted him. "No, seriously, you two are relationship goals. The way you treat Miranda, buying her that beautiful car, the trips, everything. That's how marriage should be." I kept my tone perfectly calm. "You're right. That BMW was quite a gesture. How much did that run, if you don't mind me asking?" Miranda's husband shifted in his seat. I'd rather not." My wife jumped in. "It doesn't matter what it cost. It's the thought that counts. It's about showing your wife she's valued." I turned to her with the same calm expression. "I completely agree. And you've made it very clear over the past 5 weeks that you value that kind of gesture. You've mentioned that car probably 20 times. I watched her face change as she realized something was wrong with the direction this conversation was taking. I admire." I continued in that same measured tone. "You've also mentioned their kitchen renovation, their vacation to Napa, that Cartier bracelet, the Tom Ford suits, their house in Westlake Hills, and approximately 15 other material things that I apparently should be providing to prove I love you." Miranda looked mortified. "Wait, what?" I turned to her. "I apologize. You weren't supposed to be part of this, but my wife has been using your marriage as a weapon against ours for over a month now. Every possession your husband buys you has been presented to me as evidence that I'm failing as a provider and as a man." Miranda's husband looked at my wife with something between anger and disbelief. You've been doing what? My wife was panicking now, her voice rising. We were just talking about nice things. Girl talk. It wasn't girl talk, I said. It was a systematic campaign to make me feel inadequate for not spending money on you the way he spends money on Miranda. The table went quiet. Other diners were starting to glance our way, sensing the tension. My wife's face was pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table. I addressed everyone. But here's what I learned from all those comparisons. I learned something important about the difference between your marriage and mine. Please don't, my wife said quietly. I ignored her. Miranda's husband buys her expensive things. That's true, but I've been watching them tonight, and you know what I noticed? He's checked his phone 16 times during dinner. He looks exhausted. And when Miranda talks, he's not really listening. He's thinking about work. Miranda's husband looked stung but tried to defend himself. That's not fair. I'm not judging you, I said. I'm just observing. You provide an expensive lifestyle, and that's what your wife values. That's your marriage dynamic, and it works for you both. I turned back to my wife. But here's the comparison you didn't expect. The difference between their marriage and ours isn't that he's a better provider. The difference is that Miranda appreciates what she has, and you only see what you don't have. That's not true, she started. You've spent 5 weeks telling me that a car, a kitchen, a bracelet, things are how you measure love. You've reduced our entire marriage to a shopping list. You've made it clear that I'm not enough because I won't buy my way into your approval. Then I delivered the line I'd been building toward for 5 weeks. You know what you said last Saturday? You said Miranda's husband bought her that car without her even asking, and that's how you know someone really values you. My wife looked desperate. So I thought about that, and I realized you're absolutely right. You deserve a husband who will buy you a BMW just to prove he loves you. You deserve someone who measures his worth by his credit card limit. You deserve exactly the kind of marriage you've been describing to me every single day. She looked hopeful for just a moment. So you'll? No, I won't, because I'm not that person and I never will be. But you know who could buy you that car? Miranda's husband. Or someone just like him. Someone wealthy and ambitious who shows love through material gifts. She looked confused, not yet understanding. What are you saying? I'm saying that you should absolutely pursue the kind of marriage you want. And Miranda's husband, or someone like him, can buy you all the cars you want. After our divorce. The silence at that table was absolute. Miranda looked like she might cry from embarrassment. Her husband was staring at his plate, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. My wife's mouth was opening and closing, but no sound came out. See, you thought this was a test to see if I'd step up, I continued. But it wasn't a test. It was a demonstration. You were showing me exactly how much respect you have for me, which is none. You were showing me that our entire relationship can be measured in dollars and compared to other people's Instagram posts. My wife was crying now, her voice breaking. No, wait, I didn't mean. I was just talking. I never wanted. The fastest backpedal I've ever seen, I said. But it's too late. You forgot something important about me. I'm not in a competition with Miranda's husband or anyone else. I'm not trying to win your approval by outspending other men. I'm in an exit strategy. I looked at Miranda. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Your marriage is your business. But I need you to understand that your husband has been held up as the gold standard that I'll never reach, and your lifestyle has been used to make me feel inadequate every single day for over a month. Miranda looked at my wife with anger. How could you do that? How could you use our private life that way? I turned to her husband. And I don't envy you, man. You work yourself to death to provide that lifestyle, and I'm sure it's exhausting. But at least Miranda seems grateful for what you give her. My wife just saw it as proof that I'm not enough. I stood up from the table. So here's my comparison. The real difference between a good marriage and a bad marriage isn't money. It's not cars or kitchens or vacations. It's whether your partner makes you feel valued for who you are or inadequate for what you're not. My wife reached for my arm. Please sit down. We can talk about this. We've been talking about it for 5 weeks. You've been very clear about what you think of me. I heard you, and now you're hearing me. I addressed the table one final time. Dinner's paid for. Stay and enjoy your meal. I'm going back to the bed and breakfast to pack, and then I'm driving back to Austin tonight. My wife, you can catch a ride with your friends, since you admire their cars so much. I looked at her one last time. You wanted a husband who would buy you a BMW? Go find him. I'm sure he's out there. But when you do, remember that expensive things aren't the same as being valued. And comparison is the opposite of gratitude. I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. I could hear my wife calling after me, but I kept walking. The trap had sprung exactly as I planned. She'd gotten her public demonstration of marriage standards, just not the demonstration she'd expected. I drove back to Austin that night and checked into a hotel downtown near the Four Seasons. My phone lit up constantly with calls and texts from her, but I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. She'd spent 5 weeks showing me exactly who she was when she wasn't getting what she wanted. And I'd spent 5 weeks documenting every moment of disrespect, every comparison, every attack on my worth as a man and a husband. Sunday morning, she returned to our house to find my clothes and essentials gone. I'd left a note on the kitchen counter. I've moved out temporarily. I'll be contacting a lawyer Monday morning. Please don't contact me unless it's through legal representation. Monday morning, I had a consultation with a divorce attorney at a firm on Congress Avenue. I laid out the entire 5 weeks of systematic comparison and emotional manipulation. The attorney nodded knowingly. She'd seen this pattern before. Financial pressure as emotional abuse. Materialism disguised as marriage improvement. She said I had grounds for a straightforward divorce based on irreconcilable differences. The aftermath was swift. Tuesday, my wife showed up at my workplace, trying to get past security to talk to me. They escorted her out. Wednesday, Miranda called me personally to apologize. She said she had no idea her marriage was being used that way, and that she'd cut off her friendship with my wife immediately. She felt violated and angry that her private life had been weaponized. The voicemails from my wife shifted in tone throughout the week. Monday they were angry. You humiliated me in front of my friends. How could you do that? Tuesday they were defensive. I was just trying to help you see what you could become. By Thursday they were desperate. Please, I never wanted this. We can fix this. But Friday's voicemail revealed she still didn't understand. She said that if I would just agree to couples counseling, she could explain what she'd really meant by all those comparisons. She could help me understand that she was trying to motivate me, not tear me down. She still thought the problem was communication, not respect. I learned through a mutual friend that she'd been calling people to explain her side of the story. She was telling people that I'd overreacted, that she'd just been discussing her friend's life, that I was being controlling by not letting her talk about things she admired. But Miranda had already told several people the truth. Word spread quickly. The consensus wasn't in my wife's favor. Her own family reached out to me during week 2. Her mother called to say she was disappointed in her daughter's behavior. She'd apparently been on the receiving end of similar comparison campaigns over the years. She apologized for not raising her daughter to appreciate what she had instead of always wanting more. Week 3 brought a couples counseling ambush. My wife showed up at my hotel with a therapist in tow, saying we could start right now if I'd just give her a chance. I politely declined and closed the door. Marriage counseling is for people who want to save their marriage. I wanted to save myself. Week 4, she sent a long email. She explained that she'd only been trying to motivate me to reach my potential. She said she saw so much in me and just wanted to help me see it too. She claimed her methods were wrong, but her intentions were pure. She wanted me to be the best version of myself. The email was well written and almost convincing, except for one thing. She never once apologized for how her words made me feel. She only apologized for being misunderstood. I sent a brief reply. Motivation builds people up. You tore me down. There's a difference. By week 5, I was ready for the final meeting. She'd been requesting face-to-face conversations, promising she'd say everything I needed to hear. I agreed to meet her at Joe's Coffee on South Congress, a public place where the conversation couldn't escalate. She arrived looking exhausted. The confidence and entitlement from 5 weeks ago were gone, replaced by desperation. She apologized profusely. She said she'd gotten caught up in comparison and lost sight of what mattered. She promised she'd never do it again. She begged for one more chance. She said she realized now how wrong she'd been. I listened to everything she said, then asked her 3 questions. Would you have stopped comparing me to him if I hadn't threatened divorce? She hesitated. I don't know. Probably not right away, but eventually. Did you ever consider how your words affected me, or were you just focused on what you wanted? Another hesitation. I thought I was helping you. I didn't think. I mean, I knew you were frustrated, but can you name 3 things you appreciate about me without mentioning what I could do better? She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. You're responsible, and you're smart, and you. She trailed off, unable to complete the third without adding a qualifier about how I could apply those qualities better. I nodded. That was all I needed to hear. I appreciate you apologizing, I said. But respect can't be restored once it's destroyed. For 5 weeks, you showed me who you really are when you're not getting what you want. And I believe you. The version of you that compared me to another man every day, that's the real you when you're unhappy. I deserve better than that. She started to protest, but I held up my hand. You deserve better too, honestly. You deserve someone whose wallet impresses you, who can provide the lifestyle you want without budgets or compromises. I deserve someone whose gratitude doesn't require a price tag. We want different things from marriage, and that's okay, but we can't want them from each other. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. It was quiet and straightforward. I got the house in the settlement because she couldn't afford the mortgage on her marketing coordinator salary. I heard through mutual friends that she tried dating, but kept comparing every man to impossible standards. She'd lost her friendship with Miranda permanently. She eventually had to move to a cheaper apartment when she realized West Austin lifestyles required West Austin incomes. I got promoted to senior project manager 3 months after the divorce finalized. The raise was substantial. I could have bought that BMW she wanted. Instead, I increased my retirement contributions and started dating someone new. She's a teacher who drives a 10-year-old Toyota and doesn't own a single designer handbag. When I took her to a nice restaurant downtown, she was genuinely grateful and said it was too much. That's when I knew I'd found what I'd been missing. Someone who appreciated effort instead of measuring it against other people's highlight reels. People ask me if I regret how I handled it. They say I could have tried counseling first. That 5 weeks wasn't enough time to work on the marriage. But here's what they don't understand. I didn't leave because of 5 weeks of comparisons. I left because of what those 5 weeks revealed about how she actually saw me. When someone shows you that your worth is conditional on your wallet, believe them. When someone makes it clear you'll never be enough unless you become someone else, believe them. When someone turns your marriage into a competition with strangers on Instagram, believe them the first time. My ex-wife didn't want a partner. She wanted a status symbol. She wanted proof that she'd married well, measured in luxury brands and expensive gestures. When I didn't provide that proof, she tried to shame me into becoming her trophy husband. The car comparison was just the symptom. The disease was a lack of respect that had probably been there all along, just waiting for the right trigger to surface. Miranda's arrival just gave her permission to say out loud what she'd been thinking silently. I learned that there's a difference between ambition and greed, between wanting a good life and needing to prove you have one. There's a difference between a partner who encourages growth and one who demands transformation. Most importantly, I learned that I'm not in competition with anyone else's husband. I'm not trying to win approval by outspending other men or performing some version of masculinity measured in BMWs and Cartier bracelets. I'm just trying to find someone who values me for who I am, not who I could become if I tried hard enough to impress them. My ex-wife got exactly what she asked for, the freedom to find her perfect provider. I got something better, the knowledge that I'm worth more than daily comparisons to someone else's highlight reel. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone go find what they're looking for and admit that what they're looking for isn't you. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to compete in a game where your value is measured by your spending. She forgot I wasn't in a competition. I was in an exit strategy, and I executed it perfectly.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.